Hello, hello. And if everything is working now, I'm gonna get everything connected to my streaming software as well. Hello. Alright, good. I am seeing everything. Hopefully you can hear me well. Hopefully I'm not too loud. Excellent. Alright, I think everything looks good. I see my chat's not actually, like my little chat box is not actually working. Let me see why that is. Oh, there we go. It was a little off the screen, is what it was. Yeah, I need to see. I want to make it so that the messages don't get hidden so quickly. And then I'll post a link and let everybody know that we are live. Let's see here. Hide delay. There we go. Always show messages and get rid of the delay. That should do it. That did not do it. Alright. I think we're in business now. Alright, let me post this link to LinkedIn here. Alrighty. Sorry about that. That was a little setup time. I had to spend a little time make sure everything was right. Let me know if my microphone is a little loud. I should have taken off the chat delay, although it looks like I usually don't stream through YouTube. I usually stream through Twitch, and it's pretty good on Twitch. It looks like there's a delay because of YouTube, of the chat box actually getting filled up, but I am able to see your messages on my end right away. So I should be able to answer messages as they come in quickly. The little live chat box will be more for you guys, for people that are joining the chat a little later. They can kind of see what's been said, what's going on in there. How's everybody doing? I'll probably give it a few minutes to let everybody get in here, give it some time for everybody to join in. But if you have any questions or anything, in the meantime, feel free to ask away. And probably in a few minutes here, I will start going over some of the topics I'll be talking about with the series, and I'll be posting all the live streams that I do over the course of the whole series to YouTube as well. So if you ever miss one, you'll be able to see it, or for the people that are missing this little banter right now, they'll be able to watch that back if they want to. Lots of hype. I'm glad it looks like the delay is pretty gone now. It looks like the messages are coming through a little quicker too to the little live chat box on the screen. Actually got my painting up too. Actually I didn't. My wife put it up because I was out running around doing some errands. But my wife got my little boomkin canvas back up. So we're in business. We actually have a background now instead of just a white wall. I think my headset is charged enough at this point. My dogs have also joined us officially now. They have made their entrance into the room. All right, all right, all right. I feel like LinkedIn posts always take a while to actually like propagate out for some reason. I've noticed that I'll log in there every day, and I'll only see a handful of actually new posts. How much emphasis would you suggest mid-level engineers put on side projects? Are they useful? Do most people brush them off? I think for as long, so the thing with projects is it's tricky, right? So as long as you are an individual contributor, I think projects are really important. Projects are good, probably at every level. I think they definitely matter a lot more when you're a junior or you have very little to no work experience, just because it's another way for people to kind of gauge your ability outside of your resume. Because depending on what avenue you're kind of taking to getting into tech, right? There's kind of three main ones. There's like going to college for some kind of STEM-ish, like computer science, software type degree. You could go to a boot camp. Boot camps are really, really popular now, right? And then, of course, you can just go and, maybe you studied something completely different, like medicine or whatever, and you're just getting into it by learning how to code, teaching yourself. Maybe you took some certifications. And so, in all three of those cases, I feel like the only way for you to stand out when you don't have any experience is to have projects. The higher up you go, it's probably the less the projects matter, just because you do have experience. And if I see somebody that's applied and they have a portfolio and it looks good, that's great. I'll look at that. Of course, I'll look around and maybe poke around their projects a little bit, but ultimately, I'm really curious about what kind of actual work experience they have and to understand what they've done at work, what they've done on the job. Because oftentimes, unless it's a really thorough side project, you're not going to see the veteranness, I guess, of the developer, right? You're not going to see the important stuff. Once you kind of get to mid-level, senior level, you're looking for people that are going to be decision makers, right? And a little side project sometimes does not quite give you that, but it's still good. Um, it can still help you prove that, hey, I know these languages. I think side projects are really great too if, you're trying to show off that you know other languages that are maybe not on your resume or you maybe have not used at a specific job. That could be a really great way to use a side project to kind of point to, hey, I've never worked with Kafka. All my jobs I've worked with RabbitMQ or some other kind of message broker, event messaging system. But here's a project where I've kind of done that and I've used Kafka, and maybe you use some languages that you don't normally use as a good way to also put them on your resume and kind of back it up, right? Say, hey, like I know I put that in the skills section of my resume, but here's a project that shows that, hey, I know what these languages are doing, even if I have not necessarily had a job using those. What would you say makes a mid-level engineer stand out? Um, so as you kind of go up the ladder, obviously, right? So there is absolutely still a difference in capability. And I say this across the board, right? There's a difference in capability between people, period, regardless of level. So you could grab 10 senior engineers and give them the exact same project. You're probably going to get 10 different answers, so to speak, and they're going to, varying levels of excellence and varying levels of speed to get it done, right? Um, but I think as you go up the ladder, right, as you're moving from junior into mid-level, you need to start making decisions on your own. You're kind of starting to take a little bit more ownership for the code that you're working. If you think about it in, terms of like Legos, right? A director is kind of dealing with multiple projects at the same time, usually from a very high level. They're thinking about the big high, high level, high ticket, deep architecture level discussions. And then as that trickles down from director all the way down to, the lowest individual contributor, which would be a junior software engineer, the level of kind of responsibility or expectation of decision making goes down as well, right? So then you have to think about that from bottom up now. As a junior, you're usually given tickets that there's no decision making that really needs to happen. There's maybe a few implementation decisions, but usually um, you have somebody there to mentor you and help you make those decisions if you ever do get stuck. Now, as you start moving up, right now you're mid level. Now, when you're given a ticket, there's a little bit more usually left to your interpretation as far as the implementation. And so to stand out, you need to really show somebody who's interviewing you that you can be a decision maker. You know what it takes to make a decision. I always tell people if you want to kind of level up as a individual contributor, knowing more system design, understanding architecture more is a big way for you as a mid-level engineer to stand out, right? Because that's what ultimately is going to guide your coding decisions, right? It'll guide the code you write and how you write it, and guide how you're thinking about the tickets you're being assigned. And I think that goes a long way, right? If you can prove that you're thinking about these things on a grander scale than your current level, that's how you stand out, right? That's what makes an employer or a engineering manager, your mentor, whoever it might be that's managing you, that's what's going to kind of make them want to give you more responsibility and give you more decision making power, which is ultimately how you level up. I think that's the bigger thing. That's probably 80% of what it takes to stand out as you go up the levels from mid to senior, staff, principal, so on. The other 20% is obviously just getting better at code, continuing to stay on top of it. Um, I notice a big thing that hurts a lot of people in their careers is they kind of stagnate. Maybe they get really good at the thing that they're doing at their job. Maybe they weren't a very specific thing and they start to stagnate. They maybe stop looking for ways to better themselves, or it's possible that they work in a place that, the code review process is pretty relaxed and they start to kind of get away with, sloppy code or sloppy standards or, kind of taking shortcuts that you probably shouldn't take. And so keeping yourself obviously up to date on new technologies, on the latest best practices, and continue to just practice code, staying brushed up. I mean, I know a lot of people obviously talk about leak code and stuff. The good thing about leak code type problems is that the further removed you are from your education, whether that was a boot camp or certifications or, college, um, the further detached or the further removed you are from some of that theoretical knowledge, you only kind of have the applied knowledge. And so going back, revisiting some of that theoretical knowledge from time to time, revisiting some of the data structures and algorithms you maybe are not using at your particular job, just to stay fresh on them, is also a good thing to kind of keep yourself fresh, right? Keep yourself coding well and continue to improve your code. So I'd say those are kind of like the two things, but definitely focusing on system design, understanding how to make better implementation decisions, and taking those in earnest, taking those on for yourself, taking on more responsibility. That is really how to stand out as you're kind of moving up from junior to mid level, and of course from mid level up to senior. Great questions, by the way. Thank you. Um, so actually, to talk about that a little bit, I guess, because you both had questions about uh, sort of different. One is maybe more tailored to I'm at my job, I'm a mid level engineer, and I'm trying to stand out. Whereas the other one is more I'm a mid level engineer. Maybe I'm looking for a new job. How can I stand out? What are things that I can do to look appealing as a mid level engineer on the job market? And my series is really, really trying to cover some of those things. Um, a big part of the series is going to be really I have four series here that I'm going to be working on, right? And the two biggest ones, and the things I think I'm personally where I think my strength lies, especially as being able to mentor people in, is really focusing on how to excel in the workplace and really continue to improve as an engineer who has a job already, who's trying to level up in their career and really move to the next level. Truly understanding, what's the job ladder look like, what is the expectation, and kind of talking about how you can in different workplaces because it is different everywhere you work, right? Like not every company has the same job letter, not every company has the same levels. I mean, there's different expectations of different engineers at every company, right? Some places staff and principal engineers are practically engineering managers, and other places they're purely individual contributors. So, just kind of talking about the differences and understanding how to look at your current job, your current career, and say, here's where you're at, and here's where you want to go, and here's the steps you can take to do that. Let me see this question here. As a hiring manager, do you care if someone doesn't have an extensive experience with the tech stack needed for the position? So I think it depends. Me personally, I do not care. Um, that being said, a lot of the hiring I've done has not been for, I'll give you an example, probably easier to explain. A lot of the hiring I've done has been for longevity. For the last 4 years, I've been working on what my company calls the foundation team. The foundation team is kind of what it sounds like. It's really the team that takes the MVP to market, and then once it's on market, keeps it reliable. 70% of what we do is handling bugs that come in and technical debt, continue to stomp out technical debt that comes up. Um, so, in that context, I'm not looking for an engineer that necessarily needs to come in and perform right away because we don't have a project deadline necessarily that I'm hiring for. And I have not done a lot of project specific hiring. And when I have, we've almost always used contractors to kind of fill that gap instead of hiring a full time position. And we usually hire full time for whatever we expect to need once the project or the platform is live. So me personally, I have not cared too much about them having extensive experience with the tech stack that we are using, especially given that I've been working at the company for 4 years. We started as a really small startup, got acquired, and our technology stack has evolved even in the 4 years I've been here. And 4 years is not really that long of a time, and it's evolved so much, right? So if I get somebody who's great on what we know now, but they're kind of been pigeonholed in that for 10, 15 years, that doesn't do me any good either once we pivot to something new. Now, in other places, there are places that are hiring for specific project needs. They're hiring for you to work on a particular project, or maybe, especially if the project's existed for a long time, they might not want people to have to ramp up too much on the language, and they may care a lot more about you needing to be experienced on their specific tech stack. Let's see. I think that space that's right for quality advice. There's so much content for geared for the first year or two of getting started in tech, much less for mid-level up. Yeah, I think there's a lot less out there about once you're actually at your job, once you're in the career. And that's what I want to focus on most with my series. I am going to, of course, talk about how to learn code, how to kind of get into it, how to transition into tech, because I think there's still opportunity to talk about that. And I'll maybe focus more of my live QA or some of my smaller, just kind of talking out into the world sessions, because I think a lot of this series is going to take on kind of this style of video. I'm not going to have a formal video with, slides and some fancy transitions. I'm mostly going to get up here and I'll probably put some questions up at the beginning of the video and kind of talk through them kind of organically, right? I enjoy the more conversational teaching approach as opposed to a traditional kind of here's the PowerPoint slides and I'm going to regurgitate the information I prepared for you here. Um, so I'm definitely going to talk a little bit about how to learn to code, how to get better at coding, how to kind of break into the space. But I'm definitely going to more focus on, what are interviewers looking for, less so on the leak code coding aspect of the interview, but more some of those other components that I think aren't talked about as much, and definitely focusing a lot on what to do once you're in tech, once you've got a job, and how to level up. What do you see the biggest mistake that engineers do early in their career? Early meaning less than 5 years. I think the biggest mistake people make is truly getting too comfortable. And I know I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but I'm going to expand on that a little bit. I think when you're early in your career, that's like your formative years, right? It's just like, growing up as a child, right? Like your teenage years and those kind of early, like adolescent years are where you learn stuff. It's the hand on the stove, so you realize, oh, that's hot, that burns. That's such an important lesson we have as children that kind of forms the way we interact with the world. And I think those first few years in engineering and software is kind of the same way. It's kind of you need to try to find a job, and a lot of people fixate too much on money and compensation and necessarily finding like, oh, I gotta go to a FANG company, and if I don't, I've pretty much failed already, and that kind of thing. I think it's really important to find a place that's gonna nurture you, finding a good job that's gonna have mentors, really looking for something that you're gonna have a little bit more mentorship, even if that means making a little less money, because those formative years of engineering is really all about learning, falling on your face a lot, being allowed to fall on your face, but also having people around you that are going to be able to pick you up and teach you, why you fell on your face and really let you grow as a developer. I think another big mistake people make is, in school, especially, and boot camps are similar to this. Certifications are a little bit different, and so I won't necessarily attribute this to that path of jumping into tech, but if you've kind of never worked before ever and you kind of did a boot camp, or maybe you worked, at a very different style of job and you took a boot camp and transitioned in, or you just went to college straight out of high school, there's a lot of soft skills you kind of need to pick up that you're missing still that you don't get in school and that you don't get in a boot camp. And oftentimes, young engineers have a lot of ego, because for a lot of them, they're very smart people usually, right? I feel like people that are gravitate towards engineering tend to be very intelligent, and that can be kind of a double-edged sword, right? That ego really prevents them from really learning and looking at their faults and self-reflecting regularly. And I think you should do this throughout your whole career, but those first 4 or 5 years is where you really set the basis for who you're kind of going to be. And so I think doing that and kind of allowing your ego to get broken down early on is really important. I really like Jocko Willink. He's a former Navy SEAL. He writes a lot about this. He talks about extreme leadership and extreme accountability. And I think that's something that you need to get in those first few years. People maybe don't talk so much about. I think people focus a lot on, I need to become a better programmer and I need to be able to do certain types of tickets or certain types of work really really quickly, and that's my goal. And they're kind of forgetting that they're in their social kind of professional formative period, and they need to also pick up and focus on some of those soft skills. Yeah, he's great. Any plans to collaborate with other folks in the space for any of your series? Absolutely. So I definitely want to bring people on. I've talked to several people prior to this that I've already kind of not signed on the dotted line. There's no contracts or money getting thrown around here, right? But I've definitely spoken to a few people that have taken different paths. Specifically, some people I work with now. I actually have a dear friend of mine. His name's Adam, and we work together. We've worked together now for 4 years. He's a product manager, so he mostly does product development, and he does our sketches. So he actually builds out our MVP sketches that usually go, and he works closer with VPs and the directors to kind of draw the initial scope of what things are going to look like to get an idea before we actually start doing our technical architecting and technical building out of features. Um, and he originally he went to college for computer science, and he was originally a software engineer, full focus software engineer, writing code every day. And he actually did freelancing for a while, doing websites and building apps and everything for people. And then he went into a career. I think actually we were his first job after he kind of not quit freelancing, but decided to kind of join a company and work. And so I think people like that I want to bring on and just have them talk about their experience and just show that there's so many different ways to get into tech, and also just talk about people that have pivoted, right? So he thought he wanted to be a full blown just writing code every day, and actually the owner of our company was, or when we were small, right, was working with him. He's like, man, you got a knack for product, you've got a knack for front end and design, you should really focus on that. And he never really thought about it, and he started getting into it, and now it's his passion, right? Now that's the thing that he does full time every day, and he's happier for it and he loves it. So all it took was somebody kind of not challenging him per se, but kind of making him realize where his strengths lied, and he kind of pivoted. And he's still in software, he's still in tech very much, but I'm definitely going to bring people like him on to talk about their experience and talk about some of these things, and other great people. I've got several people that I know that I'd love to bring on the show, and I'd love to talk to even people who are just starting, talk to juniors who maybe just landed a job or are looking for a job. I really want to give people a realistic picture of what's going on, because I think a lot of the information out there right now, it's misleading. It's not bad information always, but it's misleading. A lot of guidance counselors in high school will tell kids, oh, if you go into STEM, a job is going to be waiting for you and you're going to get paid buku bucks and all this stuff. And that's not the reality anymore, right? It's not that easy. It used to be pretty easy when I first jumped in 12 years ago. It was pretty easy to find a job. God, I'll tell that story one day too. Remind me to tell that story in a live. It deserves its own time block, more than I want to give here. But it's a different landscape now, and I think showing the reality and the difficulties of that landscape will be a big part of also bringing people onto the show. Is there anything you've done in your career that you do differently now looking back, or something that definitely helped you make a big step forward in your career? That's a great question, honestly. I think there's a lot I do differently. Um, so, unfortunately, when I kind of started working professionally, I had a lot of financial needs. Um, and so I could not really be picky about where I worked. I took a lot of odd kind of what's considered low tier software jobs just to make some money. And I was not paid well by any means, by the way, but I just kind of took the job that showed up. One thing I think I did really well, though, in those things that, while it's a negative, the positive there is it was very scrappy. I've worked for a lot of kind of startups, very scrappy small teams early on, and that was good for working on those soft skills that I talked about. When I first started working at scale, or even went to a larger company for the first time in my career, though, it was a culture shock, and it was really a coding shock. I mean, I thought I was a really excellent software engineer, and then I realized that I was missing this whole component of scale. Like I didn't really understand how big software could get, and maybe I would change that. Maybe I would have tried to go to a bigger scale company, or worked on a larger scale, or even just thought about it more. I mean, it's not something you necessarily have to work in, but just going about thinking about software a little bit differently when I first started. Um, so yeah, let's see. I think the thing that's helped me the most in making a step forward in my career is when I was younger, I was definitely that ego person that I was talking about. I used to really, think I was the smartest person in the room all the time. And, I think the thing that's helped me a lot and that I've gotten a lot better at over the years, and a lot of this is just realizing how many smart people are out there. And I had some big falls. You know what I mean? Like big, not falls like I lost my family, lost my job, lost my house type of fall, but I mean like mentally, like a ego fall, realizing, wow, like there's people out there that I will never even come close to in intelligence, capability, etc. And I think realizing that, and I always tell people that ideally I want to be the dumbest person in the room, especially now that I'm a manager. I want to be kind of the dumb person in the room. I want to ask lots of questions. Um, and a lot of times through asking questions and not taking so much stock in your own ideas, it makes you more open to other people's ideas. And when you're more open to other people's ideas, I think you really create something better, because I think nobody is ever 100% right. Nobody's ever 100% on the money as far as how to build something or how to really do something. And it's when you kind of bring a lot of ideas, a lot of minds together, that you kind of land on the perfect solution. A lot of people say that, oh, the best solution is somewhere in the middle. I don't think that's true either. I've actually disagreed with that very, very heavily, and I've learned that over the years too, is that I think the best solution is somewhere outside of the middle, but not on either end either. Um, if you were to look at it as a percentage, the best idea is probably 70% of somebody's idea and 30% of somebody else's. And that's probably the best solution. And I couldn't really get to that point until I kind of put away my ego and accepted that I'm happy being the dumb guy, I guess, at the conversation. Hey there, I want to work for you as a thumbnail designer, video editor. Thank you. Actually, my wife is working on some thumbnails uh, and some things. I got to get a little bit more organized, but for now, my little J will do. But I'm definitely working on it. I appreciate you offering. The best solution is in the void. Yeah, that kind of does sound like what I said, doesn't it? Uh, that's kind of true too. I mean, I don't think there's. I don't know, if there was truly a best solution, there probably wouldn't be 100 different companies offering the same service, and they wouldn't all probably be successful. There's like 50 different search engines or something, and like 10 of them are hyper successful, and there's 30 that are definitely paying a lot of people's wages and doing all right. So I guess that's just the nature of the beast. So I think, at least from the questions we've gotten so far, I think a good thing I'll probably start with talking about that is going to be a big part of my, I'm going to call it ramp up series. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't focus on is what the first 6 months at a new job looks like, and what they should be doing in those first 6 months. I think a lot of places too, um, they maybe don't have great onboarding, or even if they think they have good onboarding, if you ask somebody that was recently onboarded, they always have something negative to say, or there's always something you could have done better. And so, that's going to be a big part of things that I want to talk about, things that I want to address too, is how to create better onboarding documentation if you are a manager or a senior engineer or even just an engineer on a team. Things that you can do that not only are going to make you stand out as an individual at a job, but also that'll help, the next generation engineer coming into your job. It'll make you stand out as a leader, but also as somebody new to a job, how to keep notes for yourself, just talking about things that you want to focus on, questions you want to ask, things that I think people are afraid. When you first go to a new job, a lot of people think that if they haven't, fixed a ticket or put in a PR in a week or two, that it's like a disaster. And the metric I've always gone with is I'm happy if somebody puts out a PR within a couple of months. Um, and I'm happy if the person's like full steam by 6 months. Uh, so it's like give yourself time. Like there's obviously going to be expectations, and every job is going to have different expectations. And if naturally you have to rise to meet those, and that's one thing. But understanding where you're at and accepting that it is a process is going to help you so much. uh we watch a lot of Modern Family in our house. And Phil Dunphy from the show has this saying that's like fast is smooth. My headset just disconnected. Please hold. I think it needs to charge. We're back. Sorry about that. He says something like fast is smooth and smooth is fast. And it's really not to rush, but it's more like if you move smoothly and if you're thinking about what you're doing and thinking it through well, that you'll move quickly without even realizing it. Uh, I really want to work for you because I'm also doing software engineering degree. I'm into Flutter and UI UX. That is awesome. Flutter is actually kind of the a great tool right now. Flutter Dart. It's in. Isn't that from the Navy SEALs, not Modern Family? It might be from the Navy SEALs. I saw it on Modern Family. Remember, I'm dumb. I'm a dumb guy, so I get my information from very simple places. You know, it's possible that the Navy SEALs did say that. Sorry, shout out to the Navy SEALs. My bad if I quoted Phil Dunphy, a fictitious character, with your saying. Um, and I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it, Shubham. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. And Flutter is a great thing to get into. I think that tools like Flutter are definitely going to be the future of app development, um, especially for a majority of companies. I think a lot of people put too much stress on trying to have Swift developers and trying to have Android developers, or trying to do both. And it's really difficult, right? It's really difficult to find people that are good at Kotlin and that are good at Swift and all the tools within those stacks. And so oftentimes they end up being separate developers. Now you need two developers. Now you're managing two code bases. It's I think things like Flutter are definitely the future. It's a good thing to start with. Lillian Torres, thank you for the subscription. Uh, and good luck on your engineering degree. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're feeling enriched. This is a great topic. I think I missed a question somewhere from Sonia. Let's see. What characteristics do you think best engineers to work with have? Um, I think that goes back to my dumb person in the room comment. Um, but I like people that are, I don't know, I like to have a mix. I think it depends what you need out of somebody. I think every team needs like different people. And so the best characteristics are kind of different. You need a little bit of everything. You need a few people that are outspoken, that kind of like encourage everybody to jump in and communicate. You need like I think I've been that guy for a long time. I'm the guy that kind of cracks the first joke and kind of creates an icebreaker. So you need people with that personality. You also kind of need some people that are willing to just take some direction, put their head down, and just go in that direction for you. As far as on a personal level, I think the best characteristic to have in people is you really want people that are bought in. Um, and sometimes it's hard to get people to buy into a product or to your company. And so one thing I've always focused on is getting people to buy into me and to my team, and really creating. This sounds cheesy, and it's not quite this. I like to think of our team as like a friendship circle, if you will, more so than a family. I think the family thing is a little cheesy and doesn't really work. Um, but I definitely want people that are open to kind of just communicating with each other. People that are good communicators are huge. You can't even see my thumb. Good communicators is a very good quality to have. Um, People that aren't afraid to ask questions and admit when they're stuck is a very good characteristic of a good engineer. Because I think oftentimes a lot of time is lost in the pride of I don't want to admit that I don't know what to do next. Um, and obviously having intelligence goes a long way in this business. I feel like having smart people to work with is obviously a good characteristic that an engineer needs. Being a good learner, being able to learn well is an important characteristic. How often are you going to be releasing new episodes? Excuse me. How often are you going to be releasing new episodes? I'll probably try to do one a week. I am I do have a full-time job. I'm a husband, and we just recently moved to a new house, so we're still putting up pictures and putting together furniture. But I'm gonna try to do an episode a week. Um, the live streams like this, I don't have to prepare as much for. I kind of can just talk out into the world, answer questions, and it's a little easier, a little less friction for me. If I'm putting out a video, that's something that I probably want to take a little bit more time to put together some kind of a script and really like talk about it. But I want things to stay pretty organic, so I'm going to try to do one a week. I'll probably commit to trying to do a live stream every weekend at the least, um, or a video, one or the other, every week. And I might, you know, this thing's kind of still forming, but I might also take questions because a lot of people actually reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I respond to them, and sometimes those have really really exceptionally good outcomes. Like people go and find jobs with the advice and things like that. And I realize, only that one person is getting that. And there's been a few times that I've posted on LinkedIn or shared something on LinkedIn that I thought was useful. So I might also just aggregate some questions that people have sent me on LinkedIn or through here or just in life or wherever. I get questions all over the place. And maybe aggregate those and just kind of like go and make a video where I just list the question and talk about them. So that kind of stuff I can definitely do. So I'm definitely probably committing to one a week, at least something every week. Might do more, if there's like if I have a slower week or something. Uh, Talking on soft skills, what do you think is the place of confrontation in the first 6 months on a job? Advocating your ideas or slowing and following company culture as a new hire? That's a good question. So it's tricky, right? Because everywhere is different. I think the most important thing is you got to get good at reading the room, so to speak. And I think that's even harder when you work remotely, which a lot of people do. A lot of people work remotely nowadays, and the remote work culture is kind of missing that those organic, I guess, coffee room, like break room interactions that kind of build friendships and build kind of break down the barriers, I guess, to communication and kind of fitting in, so to speak, kind of adapting to the company culture. I think when you're new, there's definitely you definitely have to try to take a bit of a backseat to advocating your ideas and really learn. You want to spend most of your time listening and learning when you start somewhere, and that's really going to help you ramp up the most. Um, but that being said, you were hired for a reason, and I think this matters at every level. Even as a junior, you're bringing a fresh perspective to the company, and you shouldn't be afraid to speak up. I think a big thing that'll help too in that regard is when you're advocating for an idea you have, bringing it up to a single person, a mentor, maybe bringing it up in a smaller meeting and kind of getting help on how to structure your idea better maybe having a few people play devil's advocate for you and help you build out the idea so it's a little bit more concrete and foolproof, and then presenting that at a larger meeting or at like a daily stand up or kind of however your job functions is a great way to approach that, right? So definitely don't be afraid, I think, to bring fresh ideas because that's why you were hired. I mean, that's the thing that juniors actually bring sometimes that's refreshing and why they are hired in such high frequency. Obviously, they're hired too because they're cheaper than hiring seniors, and they, after several months of kind of ramping up, they can produce similar amounts of code with direction. But I definitely think you're bringing new perspective to a company, and they hired you for a reason. So definitely don't be afraid to put out new ideas and question a little bit the maybe not the status quo, but question some of the processes and doing it politely, right? Doing it from a place of ignorance, I guess. Feign a little bit of, hey, I'm new here, so I don't really understand how this works. Could you explain to me how this works? Because maybe you can mention, oh, in the past I've done it this way, so that's why it's a little different to me. And you might inadvertently also make people think or question the way that they've been doing things or question the idea. This is difficult because there's a lot of things you could advocate for, but it might make them question it more, and they might even realize, oh, wait, there is something we could do, and they might even open it up for you to just kind of speak your mind freely, and that kind of becomes a open avenue for you at that point. So that's a good question. Uh, I definitely do think though, in those first 6 months especially, you want to be like the sponge, learning as much as you can and listening as much as you can. Um, and if you create that perception that you're a good listener to coworkers, I think they'll also be a lot more receptive to listen to you. And so then when you do advocate for your ideas, I think you're going to have a lot more ears there to listen. Shubham, can you help me in getting a remote internship? Um, I definitely can. I mean, I think over the course of the series, I'll definitely suggest lots of tools and people. I think if you're looking for a remote internship right now, I think it depends on where exactly you are in your process. So if you're studying software engineering right now at a university, for example, you might want to reach out to your university's career department, or they likely have some kind of department that helps you with placement or just career development in general, and ask them, what kind of handshake programs they might have. I know locally where I live, the university here has a handshake program where they're constantly pairing people with local companies to get internships. I'm sure a lot of places have remote opportunities as well. I know my job, we bring on 2 to 3, I think, sometimes 4 paid interns every summer for the summer months, from like May through August. Actually, our interns just left us like a month ago, and they always work on some kind of a project. And I think for a lot of them, let me think here. I think a few of them were paid. I think some of them were not able to be paid because they were doing it as part of their it was like part of their credits or something for school. It's like we couldn't pay them and them get credit for school or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not the one that deals with that kind of stuff, but definitely reach out. I mean, I think reach out to companies you're interested in and see if they're willing to hire you as an intern. Um, and if you're looking to just get experience and you don't care about a paid internship, I think it'll be even easier for you to find people willing to teach you. I mean, just go in, you'll get some experience, and they'll get some free labor out of you, which never hurts. Um, so just reach out to your school, talk to them, see what they have, and if they don't have anything, reach out to some companies that look interesting to you. Okay, how do you figure out what you want to do, like front end versus back end, etc.? That's a good question. So I think the easiest way to figure out what you like to do is to do the thing and see how much you enjoy it. Um, One thing I always advocate for is do things that are relevant to you. You know, if you really like a certain show or a certain sport, or if you have a hobby, whatever that is, knitting, tennis, cooking, whatever, playing video games, um, whatever it is that you're interested in, find a project within that space, invent one. It could be, things that I've done are like I've created tools for my games to make my games more efficient or to help me communicate better with the people I play with. Or, obviously I play World of Warcraft, so there's a lot of technical stuff you can do for that game and learn. And it's always fun to do because I love the game, and so it doesn't even feel like I'm working. Um, have a good one, Jack. Thanks for tuning in, man. Appreciate you. Um, so that's one thing, just do. If you do a project, I think you'll naturally kind of start to land on what you enjoy um, by just trying it out. And the thing that feels like has the least friction to learning and being excited about is likely the thing you enjoy the most. Because there's a lot more to software than just front end and back end, even. Um, a lot of people focus on those two things because I think those are the most common things that people talk about in software. But there are aspects to software engineering like DevOps, there's cybersecurity that and cybersecurity can be both front end and back end. I mean, there is security that needs to happen both on the front end of an application, and obviously there's a ton on the back end of an application. There is hardware engineering, which obviously that's not software, but it's still programming. I mean, there's still a lot of programming when it comes to hardware, and there's usually a more hands-on component with hardware too that can be interesting for people, especially people that are tinkerers. They definitely always recommend them to look into hardware. A lot of people think that hardware can be boring or DevOps can be boring, but the thing is that there's some very complicated stuff going on in those spaces, and they're growing, right? I mean, I think a great example of that is Tesla and companies like Tesla and the surge of electric car companies and vehicles. There's a ton of embedded software boards going into those cars. There's a ton of software and mostly it's low level, right? Very fast, very reliable firmware type coding that's going into building those cars. That is extremely interesting and extremely important and being paid extremely well that not a lot of people are getting into. So really the best way to learn is just to try stuff out, do projects, focus on the front end, focus on the back end, maybe learn some DevOps, maybe learn what's even out there. One thing I like to tell people to do too that helps a lot is if you're unsure what you want to do or what you want to get into, go on LinkedIn Jobs, go on Indeed, go on Dice.com. Go to your favorite job board, whatever that might be, or your favorite website that you look at jobs on, and just look for jobs and just see what they're talking about, see what they're looking at, look at the responsibilities that are attached to that job and read through them and just see, are those interesting to you? Do you think you'd have fun doing that? Is that something that you'd enjoy doing 40 hours plus a week? And that's a good place to start. That's also a great place to start for finding technology to learn. I think one of the most common questions I get all the time is um, what languages should I learn? Hey, I want to get into programming. What languages should I learn? And a lot of people go and look up what are the most popular languages right now. And that's not a bad way to learn. Don't get me wrong, that's not a bad place to start. But depending on what list you're looking at, you might end up with, you know, a whole bunch of languages that you have no idea even about. I mean, I think 70% or something of the internet or 80% of the internet is still on PHP, and I work with PHP by the way, so I'm not hating on it. PHP is actually a very good language that gets a bad rap, but um, that's inflated heavily by the fact that most websites are built with things like WordPress, Drupal, and Wix, and the reality is those are all built in PHP, so that kind of inflates the number. But PHP is not necessarily the most uh, modern or hot language right now. So I think people should go look at job listings and look at the tech stack that they're seeing like in demand right now and just kind of curating things that look interesting to them and looking at what those those job listings specifically are looking for technology, and then doing projects with those technologies and learning those. Those are a good place to start. What's your take on learning outside of hours while also trying to avoid burnout? Yeah, that's really tough. And I'd consider myself a bit of a workaholic, so I really love my work, and I work a lot, and I have worked a lot for a long time. Um, it's tough to do projects outside of work. It's tough to find motivation to wanna do a project or learn a new language when you just got off a 70-hour week of coding or working at your actual job. Um, it's pretty easy to stay motivated about the code at work for me because I enjoy it, and also, you know, we do make pretty good money as software engineers, right? So the paycheck always is a motivator, I guess, to an extent. But um, I think the best advice I can give on learning outside of work is there's a lot of ways to learn. You don't necessarily have to jump into a project. One thing I like is there's lots of like different podcasts that are out there. I like this. Let me open up my email here. I have this TLDR. I don't. Is it just TLDR? It's the TLDR newsletter, and I've signed up for that, and I love it because I just read through that casually every so often and just kind of see. And I maybe don't read it every day. I'll usually like batch it up. I actually have all their emails. I'm signed up for their AI one. I'm signed up for their web dev one. I'm signed up for their founders and their info security um, one specifically. They have a ton that you can sign up for depending on what you like. And just reading about stuff. I think if you read about something, for me, for example, I'll read about something and kind of see something that's interesting to me, and then that might, lead me to tinker with it. A lot of my projects are always, gaming focused or tennis focused, or even doing things for myself around the house. Making my making our shopping spreadsheet or something into an app, and then making that, adding updates to that is a great little tool that I like. Um, doing something like that that's for fun and useful uh, to you is a good way to avoid burning out, but still kind of learning outside of your working hours. Jordan versus LeBron, who wins? Uh, you know, listen, I'm not a basketball person. I watch some basketball. I like basketball. I think that's a tough one. That's tough. They played in kind of different eras. Uh, LeBron James is a freak in nature, and so is Michael Jordan. So I don't know. I don't know who'd win. I'd say they'd probably. I bet they'd take games off each other, honestly. I think they'd probably play out like 100 matches, and I think one of them might edge each other out. But I think we'd be surprised. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for stopping by. I think the better question is if it was Kobe versus LeBron. I think I'm going Kobe all the way. I'm less passionate about the Jordan versus LeBron debate. Let's see. Did I miss anything here? If I didn't twist my ankle in the third grade, I'd be better than LeBron, to be honest. That's probably true. That's probably true. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe if I'd have focused on basketball instead of computers and software, I might have also been better than LeBron. Probably not. I don't know. I'm only 6'1". I think he's got like, I don't know how tall he is. He's like 6'7" or 6'8" or something, maybe even taller than that. He's probably, and he's got better genes, more athletic for sure. Anywho, uh, I think that's debatable. Yeah, I don't think I would have had a future in basketball. I'm too short. I'm too short, and I don't know. I'm not athletic enough for basketball. I think my my strengths definitely lie elsewhere. He is 5 feet flat. It's not the ankle. I mean, there's been short people that have played in the NBA. I don't know how short. Let's see. Shortest NBA player. Apparently, the shortest NBA player was Muggsy Bogues, standing at the tall stature of 5 foot 3 inches. So anything is possible, you know. Short kings out there can live their NBA dreams, apparently. So maybe it was his ankle. Yeah, let the man live his truth. So I think in general too, um, a lot of the questions today have kind of been about how to stand out, either in the interview process or once you're already in a job. And one thing I've noticed in a lot of the companies that I've personally worked is the job ladder anywhere I go is not always very clearly defined. No problem. I got you. Listen, I mean, we're out here lifting each other up. It doesn't matter if it's software or basketball or anything, we got to lift each other up out here. It's tough enough. It's tough enough. We don't need to be bringing each other down. Live your truth. Um, I think the job ladder is not super clearly defined in a lot of places, and I think if it was more clearly defined, I think a lot of the standing out would be an easier thing to do. And so there's a couple of things you can do if the place you work at does not have a very clearly defined job ladder. One is to, kind of pester your manager or managers or director or whoever you'd have, access to kind of give you a job ladder or something like that. But you can directly ask for feedback on, you know, what it would look like to move into your next level of role, right? If you're a mid-level engineer, you can ask your EM or your director, whoever's your kind of uh, boss, what what it would take. Ask them for some feedback, professional feedback. Most places have some kind of yearly objectives, performance reviews, things like that. And I think taking your time to do a good job with those and actually, asking your manager or, your lead, what they kind of expect to see out of a more senior person, what they'd like to see more out of you is a great starting point. Also, just kind of paying attention to, again, I love to use this example because it's kind of out there, right? Always keeping your eye on the market. Even if you're happy in your job, it's always a good thing to keep looking at a job board every so often and see what technologies people are using. See what expectations different jobs have. Look at roles that match yours, and see what the responsibilities on the job listing are. Look at roles that you're trying to become. Even if your goal isn't to leave your company, that's okay. You're just looking to kind of gauge what is it that people are expecting to see from a senior software engineer at other companies. Obviously, you have kind of there's a lot of information out there that goes public about the FANG companies, Mang, I guess they're called now because of Meta renaming. That's a really good starting point for trying to build, if your company does not have one, trying to build a personal job ladder and using those listings as a way for you to write better performance objectives for yourself. Uh, if you don't have that support and help in your job, you can write those goals yourself and find that information yourself by doing that and kind of tailor your growth goals around what those positions are saying they're looking for. Granted, a lot of job listings have things that they don't actually expect you to do, And there's oftentimes some unstated responsibilities that comes with every job, of course. But it's definitely a good starting place if you don't have anything else, if you don't have that structure in your job. And you can also be the person, again, if you want to look at how to stand out, especially as a mid-level or senior engineer, but even as a junior, if you want to stand out, you can start to build these ideas and suggest these things. One thing I did every year with our, performance objective season is I actually started because we didn't have anything. We had a little bit of training, training modules and things on objectives, but there was never really any specifics or any real examples. A lot of them just kind of said, here's how you use the tool in Workday or whatever the tool was that the company was using. And so here's how you use our tool to put them in, and um, here's how you can go about writing some performance objectives. And they usually give you a couple of metrics, like you have to have at least three, and you need to have, you know, they have to be two sentences long or something like that, right? They'll have these like kind of metrics for you, but they don't talk about too many specifics. And so I used to keep a running, living document of just ideas and examples that I've come up with. And I would have a lot of people collaborate on that at different levels of the company too, and just review it. And at almost every company I've worked to, that has almost always gotten the attention of somebody higher up the chain. At the director, or even at one job, it was the president of the entire division. So like like the pretty much the C-suite of the company. And they've always taken notice to it, and it always seems like having people collaborate and kind of putting it out there that there's not a ton of specific examples has been a great tool for um, starting a conversation and building out those job ladders and those role expectations. Um, and it can start with you, and then you'll definitely stand out. I mean, that'll make you stand out as a leader, make you stand out within your company as well. And people will take notice for a positive reason that you're kind of trying to bring structure, organize things. Um, Another rule I love to use is like the campfire rules, right? The campfire rule is you always leave the campfire a little cleaner than you found it. Um, I like to use that with coding, as a guideline for when you're doing a ticket and you're working on some code, making sure you kind of make sure that the code you're working in or working on is left a little bit neater or a little bit better than how you found it, and taking a little bit of extra time to make sure you do that. That's a nice way to kind of ward off some technical debt over a long period of time on a project. But also, even with documentation and things, if you're ever trying to do something specific that you maybe don't do often at your job, maybe like accessing a specific server to get some logs that aren't regularly used or something, and you realize there's no documentation on that at your job, starting that documentation, even if it's simple, just writing down the steps you took. And almost always you have to call somebody in that does know how to do it, and then they kind of explain it to you. But like writing that down and starting those kinds of tidbits of documentations is also a great specific way to just start standing out and start showing that you're taking on more responsibility at your job and within your role, and showing that you can kind of stand out as more of just not just an individual contributor, but that you're also kind of thinking and doing these other things that are supporting other engineers at the company. So it looks like I ran over my hour here. Um, Thank you so much for everybody that has come out. I'm going to give a few more minutes if anybody has any other questions before I sign off for the evening. But thanks for coming. Thanks for all the good questions. I know some of the people that have asked questions have already left, but I appreciate them nonetheless. And I look forward to kind of doing this more often, trying to put out some content every week, making a video every week to help people out, help them kind of level up in their careers and get started in their careers. And if you were too shy to post a question here today in the chat, feel free to DM me either here on YouTube or on LinkedIn with any questions you might have, and I'll gladly respond to you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I will see you all next time. Take care.